Thank you for joining me, Michael Sears, Managing Director of Sears Walker Jarvis. It's been just over a week since the Renters Reform Bill was placed before Parliament for its first reading last Wednesday, 17th of May 2023. So during the last few days, our agency and the association to which we belong, that's Property Mark, which incorporates ALA, the Association of Residential Letting Agents, has been disseminating the information about the bill. The first thing to note, this is just a bill. It's not law at the moment, or even close to becoming law. It will take a minimum of 9 to 12 months, and probably a lot longer than that, for this bill to pass into law. And at this stage, the bill has only just passed its first reading. So on the 5th of June, MPs will debate the bill again, and there will be a second reading and report stage, and then the third reading and debate. So amendments will have to pass through both houses of Parliament. As my firm's client, I know that you'll be wanting to know what my take on the whole rental reform bill is, given I'm a practitioner 30 years plus, a main board member of Property Mark, and obviously have an insight into what's gone on behind the scenes with government and with Parliament. My professional conclusion after reflection is this: there are no surprises with this bill. It's what we expected. The government is largely sticking to its original proposals. I would even go further and say that, in my opinion, many of the proposals of this bill will lead to benefit decent, responsible landlords, which every one of you, our clients, are, given that you have chosen to be fully represented by a fully regulated agent that Sears Walker Jarvis are. We now know for certain what change will look like, and my association can still help to shape the detail of what this change will be. So let's run through two of the main areas of what the bill sets out to achieve. The bill sets out to end assured short-hold tenancies, so no more fixed-term tenancies. All tenancies will run month-to-month or periodic from their outset. A tenancy agreement with a fixed term will no longer be enforceable when this bill passes into law. Tenants will be able to give notice at any time, and they will need to give a minimum of 2 months' notice. And that's a change, 2 months' notice, including serving notice by email. The Section 21 notice is to be abolished. The so-called no-fault eviction process currently at landlords' disposal will not continue. The Section 8 notice is to be beefed up with additional grounds, and these will include ground 1. This covers gaining possession where a landlord wants to move back into the home, and importantly, this extends to family members of a landlord wanting to move into that property as well. Ground 1A is the ground that covers gaining possession where a landlord wants to sell their property, and can also be used by mortgage companies in repossession. So with both of these grounds, providing the process is followed correctly, possession is mandatory and not at the discretion of the court. For those landlords thinking that grounds 1 and 1A can be served to gain possession, and once possession is gained we can then let the property out again, this is to be actively discouraged. Landlords will not be able to list a property for rental again until a minimum 3-month period following possession has passed. Ground 7A. This covers eviction for antisocial behaviour or criminal activity or offences. Tenants would have to have broken the law and be prosecuted in some way for a crime, and this is an immediate notice that you can serve. Previously it was a 4-week notice, although the court can only award possession 14 days after service of that notice. And this is a mandatory ground, not discretionary. Ground 14. This covers serving immediate notice to a tenant capable of causing annoyance. The court can only award possession 14 days afterwards, and at present there is no detail on what the burden of proof will be that's needed. This ground will require a local authority notice, certainly, or a conviction to have been applied to the tenant. Ground 8. Similar as before, this covers rent arrears, and it does still cover rent arrears. The notice period has changed though. It's gone from a 2-week period notice to a 4-week period notice. Ground 8A, this covers gaining possession for repeated rent arrears. Now, if a tenant has had 3 separate instances where they were in rent arrears of a minimum of 2 months or more over the past 3 years, possession can be sought and this is a mandatory ground, so that's the important one. Next, the bill seeks to introduce a private rental sector database, a new property portal of landlords and tenants. It will contain details of landlords, details of the property for rental, and details of landlords who have banning orders and convictions. Therefore, agents will need to check all landlords and properties against this database, and fines from £5,000 up to a maximum of £30,000 will apply if landlords are not on this database prior to letting. In effect, we see this as a national licensing scheme for landlords and property. Now, government has obviously realised that many landlords are not declaring their property income for tax purposes. It's something that's not a problem to any of our clients because we know that you do. Access to the database will not at this stage be readily available to tenants. Now, this bill also deals with renting with pets. Landlords will not be able to unreasonably withhold their consent to a tenant letting with a pet. However, landlords will be able to require tenants to take out pet insurance, which tenants sign to say that they will not only take out but they will maintain. And landlords can pay for this insurance and back charge for tenants if they wish as well. Now, tenants must provide a description of their pet, and the landlord must consider this within 42 days. As of yet, the only circumstances where landlords can object to a pet is if a superior landlord objects to pets, for example, a freeholder of a block of flats. Each pet must be considered on a case-by-case basis. Now, the bill also introduces a redress scheme for landlords, regardless of whether or not a landlord uses an agent. Now, this form of ombudsman scheme will be free for use to tenants. This could be dealing with complaints about property standards, repair issues unresolved, etc. The Ombudsman can impose sanctions such as making a landlord apologise to a tenant. It could force landlords to carry out repairs, etc. And those are just a few examples. Under this scheme, landlords will be contracted in the same way that agents are to pay compensation of up to £25,000. As agents, we are contracted to do exactly the same under our Ombudsman scheme on your behalf. Under this bill, there is some good news, however. There appears to be no appetite to introduce any rent cap. Unlike Scotland, where my association Property Mark has challenged the Scottish Government's intention of introducing a rent cap, this is currently going to a judicial review north of the border. So that's where we are with that, and that's an important plus point. The Section 13 notice will remain, whereby we can serve notice of a rent increase once per annum to a tenant. And currently the Section 13 notice is just a 1 month notice, but this will change to a 2 month notice. Where there are unfair above market rent increases, tenants will continue to have access to a rent assessment committee to determine what is fair in the same way that they have at the moment. In conclusion, there is nothing to scare me, the agent, and indeed you, my client. What this bill will do is ensure that every landlord pays their taxes and is accountable for their accommodation they are providing. So it's bad news only for those landlords who do not declare a property income and fly, frankly, by the seat of their pants in terms of adhering to safety certs, regulations, health and safety, etc. As your agent, we will be concentrating on the following things: ensuring we properly react to and record maintenance issues and have a robust system in place for doing so and accounting for that response, and to ensure where a tenant is not paying their rent, we can successfully gain possession without the threat of a tenant claiming disrepair. And ensuring that all of our staff are qualified and up to date on all legislation, including the Renters Reform Bill, to ensure you as a landlord are fully and legally compliant. We will plan to have systems and procedures in place to include you and your property's details on the private rental sector database, and ensure we provide for you robust defence and mitigation should any tenant make a complaint to the landlord's redress scheme. My experience tells me that legislation like this leads to the death of irresponsible, unreasonable landlords and the death of rogue agents. Meanwhile, the smart landlord investor will remain. There is no better investment than property, the income from a property rent and the capital appreciation over time of your property and that asset, it takes some beating in terms of any other investment that you might make, and particularly in terms of the low scale risk involved as well. Thank you for watching.